So Adam has got to the point that he always wanted to get to, coming back to see Dad. And all of a sudden he realizes, you know what, there's a lot more to me that I have laid buried that maybe has fueled my life than I would like to think. All of the hurts and the challenges that we have had in our lives, whether it was from years ago or whether it was from in the last 2 weeks, these experiences that we have, they are going to force you to do one of two things. I'm going to put them up here. They can either define you or they can inspire you. The things that are in your life that have they defined your steps forward, or have they inspired you to perhaps change what it is that you're doing moving forward? And there are so many stories of inspiring people out there. Does anyone love listening to true stories and hearing about people that overcome amazing things and they head into life and they do these phenomenal stuff, and you're like, how could they do that with the past that they have? In fact, there are even people in this room that I would say have those amazing stories, and I hear them and they give me an encouragement to go, you know, God can use anybody with any background, with any situation that's happened. But one of these people I want to look at today actually comes from Scripture. And they recorded it in here, so obviously his story is one that we want to hear from. And it's actually all the way at the beginning of the book, and it's in Genesis. And this is Joseph. Not of the Mary and Joseph fame, but of the Technicolor Dreamcoat variety. So Joseph, he's a boy. And one of the things that he did, he had lots of brothers, but Joseph was like the golden child, right? He was good looking, he had wisdom. And the other thing that he also had was an ability where God gave him dreams so that he could actually predict things that were going to happen. And on this one particular day, so he had like 9 brothers or something like that. On this one particular day, he had a dream. And in the dream, there was a long sheaf of wheat. Okay, and the sheaf of wheat was in the center, and there was all these sheaves of wheat around the outside, and they started to bow towards the one in the center. And God revealed to him, Joseph, that's you. You're the one in the middle, and all the ones bowing behind you are your brothers. And Joseph, he's so smart. He's like, I'm going to tell my brothers about this, right? What a genius. Hey, bros. So he tells them about what is happening. And you know what the brothers do? You're dead. They basically came up with a plan to kill Joseph. They're like, we've had enough of this kid. He gets the fabulous rainbow coat from Dad. He thinks we're going to bow to him, not on our watch. And so they come up with this plan to kill him. But he has one brother, only one brother that's got his back, Reuben. And Reuben says, you know, guys, I don't know if we should kill him this way. Let's just dig a pit, put him in the pit, let the animals do the job, and then, you know, it's no blood on our hands. But Reuben was actually going to come back and save Joseph out of the pit. But before he could even get there, his brothers sell him to Egyptian traders. Now, to be honest, I think it would be fair for Joseph to be a little bit upset about this, right? Your brothers have just sold you as a slave. Like I've had arguments with my brother, but I would never go that far because I can't. No, I would never. I love my brother. But it would be entirely fair for Joseph to be having a pity party. This is it. This is my life now. I'm a slave. I'll just have to get on my slave, okay? But Joseph arrives in Egypt, and this is the part of the story that I just love. He's purchased by the captain of the palace guard of the king, a man called Potiphar. And we can read in Genesis 39:2, this is what happens once he gets back there. Potiphar noticed this. Oh, hang on, I've got a little bit before that. The Lord was with Joseph and blessed him greatly as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. So even though he's a slave, he's in the place, he's being a slave, the owner and the master's like, whoa, what is on with this guy? This slave is above all the other slaves. What is happening? And he recognizes it. And down the track, Potiphar notices, and he actually puts him in charge of every part of his financials in his. And you think he's one of the palace guards, so he's pretty up there. But he picks this slave and he says, I'm going to place you of importance across the things that are important to me. quite a huge thing. But wait, there's more. Joseph starts to have Potiphar's really, I can see what you're doing here. I'm going to reward you for this. And so Potiphar's wife goes, Joseph's a bit nice. Tries to make some advances towards Joseph. And Joseph, using integrity, he declines. And so what does Potiphar's wife do? Accuses him of assault. And he's thrown into prison. Yay! Talk about the highs and lows of life, right? But then in Genesis 39:21, let's have a read of this. But the Lord was with Joseph there too. And he granted Joseph favor with the chief jailer. Before long, the jailer put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. It doesn't matter where he goes. It doesn't matter how low he gets. He is still being elevated into positions of power in the areas that he's in. How does this happen? Well, Joseph knew that he couldn't change the things of his life. He couldn't change the fact that his brothers sold him. He had no control over that. He had no control of who was going to buy him. He had no control of being a man of integrity and being put into prison. But he did have control in saying, you know what, God, it doesn't matter where I am. I'm going to give room for you to move. And this is what we see in Joseph. And then he goes on to become a ruler in Egypt. Come on, talk about a 180, right? And I love the story. I'm not going to go into it, but the story of his brothers. They find out he's alive and they come back to Joseph. And guess what? They're pooping their dacks because he's a ruler now and they're the ones that sold him as a slave. But they come in and Joseph gets to talk to them. And in Genesis 50, we read this. And he says, don't be afraid of me. Am I God to judge and punish you? As far as I'm concerned, God turned into good what you meant for evil. He brought me to the high position I have today so I could save the lives of many people. What an attitude of gratitude. Had to throw that in there. So you can't go back and change things, but you can choose to decide how you move forward with the things that happen in your life. And God has presented us and gifted us with a way to move forward because God had his own Adam project, right? Adam and Eve. And that went so well. But unfortunately, Adam and Eve went against the best that God had for them. And so it has created this world now that we're in that is so full of hurt. It is so full of disappointment. You don't have to live in the world for very long to experience that for yourself. And our lives are not sheltered from disappointment. Even when you get to know about Jesus, I'm sorry, it's not a Band-Aid that fixes all the problems of your life. But there are some positive things from it I'm going to get to. But we come into this world with no experiences that we've had, and it's kind of a bit like an empty backpack. It's nice and light. I'm born, yeah. Feed me, rah! Clean my butt, rah! Life's easy. I wish I was back there. Not the cleaning butt part. But over time, things happen in your lives, okay? We make life choices that go south. I've done this. We have relationships that hurt us. We have events that occur that leave a scar. You have things that you say, you instantly wish you did not say that. Ugh. You have career events that go south that you thought were going to go great. You have family issues that you have no control over and they affect you. And here's things I prepared earlier. We put all these heavy things from our life and they fill our life. All of the negative stuff, all of the things that happen to you, whether they're in your control or whether they're because you chose it for yourself. And we hand them into our backpacks of life and we just keep going. And we zip it up and we put it on. This is the fun part. Ouch. And we walk around life like this. And we wonder why we're trying to strive forward for things and we're a little slow. Maybe we haven't reached where we're tried to get and we're like, oh, how come I can't get there? And it's heavy. And we carry it around with it and we carry our hurts and we use it as an excuse. Oh, I can't do that because this happened to me. Oh, no, that's just too heavy in my life. These things have happened. But can I tell you what? God didn't just have an Adam project. He had a second project. And it was the Jesus project. We should get excited about the Jesus project. Because he presented the world with Jesus. And the reason he presented the world with Jesus is because he saw that this was happening constantly to people in the world. And he said, you know what? I don't want it to stay that way. I don't want people to have to carry that around without the option of something else. And we get to choose whether we want to listen to what Jesus has to say to us. And then Jesus went to the cross and he died and he rose again to say, this stuff does not need to be yours to carry anymore, because I am actually here to not take the experiences away from you. I'm sorry. You'll grow from those things, but I will help you carry the load. The Jesus project, right? I've experienced the Jesus project in my life, and I continue to experience it in my life, because this is what freedom is, guys. When we talk about freedom, it is letting go of the hurts and the disappointment in our life and letting God say, I can fill that with something fresh that actually, for you, is going to bring you freedom. Freedom from judgment, freedom from guilt, freedom from fear, freedom from brokenness, freedom from labels, freedom from the things that have happened in your family that you had no control over, freedom of the generational curses, of insecurity that you think, I'm just not good enough for that. Who says? God doesn't say that. Freedom from relational pain. He comes alongside, and you can't go back and change things, but you can choose to move forward in freedom. So how do you walk in freedom? Just a really practical thing as we're finishing up. How do you walk in freedom? Number one, you acknowledge. Here's our next one. We acknowledge the parts of life that has affected us. So all those heavy things, we don't just stuff it down and hope the backpack's going to get lighter. We acknowledge the things that have happened in our life and go, that was terrible. Acknowledging something doesn't mean you go, oh, that was a bad experience in my life. But there's one thing that I really don't like. It's this phrase. It says, everything happens for a reason. I don't like that phrase. In fact, it irks me. I will never, ever say that to somebody. Everything happens. That's it. Everything happens. But God can turn evil for good, right? So we acknowledge those things, emotional intelligence. Then number two, we let them go. We don't carry around the backpack struggling around, wondering why we can't achieve the things that God's calling us to. We let it go. We do that through emotionally healthy spirituality courses where we can dig deep. We have support groups. How awesome is it to have professionals in the world? Counselors, people that can come and help us sort through all that stuff. And of course, prayer. Asking God to come and help fill the spaces that have been so full with the heavy stuff of our life. And then this is the number three. You make space for Jesus. When I was taking all that other stuff out, all that heaviness, it hasn't stopped those things happening to me, but it has allowed space for Jesus to come and fill in that space. And you make space for a helper to come alongside you. And that was the Jesus project from the beginning, was to have someone to come alongside you. And for some of you, I know that third one may be a huge step. Maybe you're here and you're not even 100% sure of what you think about Jesus yet. Perhaps you're just starting off a journey and you're like, yeah, those first two, I can get that. Acknowledge it, deal with it. Yeah, got that. Number 3, not too sure about that. But can I just encourage you to maybe this year start to investigate it for yourself. Think a little bit about Jesus. Start to hear the things that he said through what's written down in scriptures. Maybe start to talk to him for yourself and check out in the world how Jesus' people, the real people that represent him, are moving. Because you might get a glimpse of a Jesus that maybe you have doubted for a while. And for anybody, whether you have been a follower for years or you are just investigating, can I challenge you as well? You have written a narrative in your mind, whether you know it or not, about God and what God can do in your life. We all do it. We have experiences, we have even experiences with God, and we write that narrative in our minds. And I want to challenge us all this year to challenge the narratives that we've written about God and try and find out actually what is God trying to do in my life. And it may take some relearning of things that you have taught yourself to believe. We're going to have a look at this last little verse from the Bible. In Matthew 11:28, then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." You don't have to carry the backpack alone. You can't go back and change things, but you can choose to walk forwards in freedom, whatever your circumstance is, whatever is going on in your life.